Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I am Hannah Gerardo, and I'm delighted to be your moderator today on behalf of Sustainable Energy for All and the People-Centered Accelerator Secretariat. Our colleagues, Benson and Demetrius at WRI, have led a multi-partner effort to create a new, interactive, open source data platform called the Energy Access Explorer. As you will soon see, this is a powerful tool to visualize and analyze multiple aspects of energy data to drive progress on universal access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy services. I personally have spent quite a bit of time playing around with the many layers of data and look forward to seeing how you all incorporate this tool into your work and advocacy efforts to make sure no one is left behind as we get closer to achieving SDG 7. In terms of the format today, our colleagues will present the Energy Access Explorer platform, and we will reserve about 15 minutes at the end of the discussion for any questions or comments from you. We'll aim to have as much time as possible for this exchange after Benson and Demetrius share a snapshot of the tool, and ask that you feel free to submit questions as they come up throughout the presentation using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. I will also quickly note that we will send the slides around after the webinar, and a recording will be posted online shortly. However, since you will just get a small glimpse of what this exciting tool can do today, I strongly encourage everyone to open the Explorer and take some time to play around with the many options that the team at WRI has created. With that, I will hand it over to Benson to kick us off. Thank you, everyone.
Great. Thank you so much, Hannah, for organizing this wonderful opportunity to do a deep dive into the Energy Access Explorer, the tool. So to all the participants, my name is Benson Ireri, and I lead the WRI's growing energy access work in the East African geography, and I'm based in Nairobi, Kenya. We will be co-presenting this session with my colleague Demetrius Mentis, who's actually our senior associate and the project manager, and actually the lead person behind the development of the EAE tool, as you'll get to hear much more about it. But in the interest of the time, he will introduce himself later when he gets the opportunity to actually then take us through in more details about the tool. But before we get there, please allow me to briefly introduce you to who WRI is, and a brief look at our energy program and more specifically our energy access work. So as you know, WRI is a global research organization, or rather, if you may, a think tank with offices and projects across more than 60 countries across the world. As you all know, natural resources are the foundation. They are at the foundation of economic opportunity and with human well-being. But we are currently depleting these resources at unsustainable rates, thus endangering economic development and people's lives. And as a result, then, the work that WRI does is basically seeking to turn big ideas into action at the nexus of environment, economic opportunity, and human well-being. We work across 7 program areas, as you can see there, one of them being climate, and then the other one is energy, food, forest, water, cities, and ocean. But our energy work, which now this platform, of course, is based, is actually divided into 3 pillars. One of them being renewable energy, the other one energy efficiency and energy access. But just to give you a quick snapshot into each one of these is that, for example, under our renewable energy, under our renewable energy, we drive alignment and investment in electricity markets to deliver on consumer demands for affordable transition to clean energy. And then when you look at our energy efficiency work, which is actually under our buildings initiative, we provide practical resources to help cities succeed with policies, technologies, and innovative investment and strategies to deliver better buildings and more efficient urban development. And finally, on the energy access work, which is actually the pillar under which the Energy Access Explorer is based, seeks to accelerate efforts to extend affordable, reliable, and clean energy to all. I'll speak much more about the energy access work shortly. Before I get there, I think it's only fair for me then to take you through the approach that we usually do in a very brief manner. So we usually our approach is actually through 3 main stages or steps. which you can see from there. One of them is count it, change it, and scale it. But I think to be much more specific before we proceed, under the count it, we basically start with data and analysis. Here we do independent research, which helps to develop insights and recommendations that then we actually take out there. And then in terms of changing it, it's basically using our research to influence government policies or business strategies and the civil society organizations' actions. And then finally, in terms of scaling it, is once then we test the recommendations or the approaches that we propose based on our research, we then work with partners and to adopt and expand the efforts both regionally and globally. So as you can see, of course, it's thinking much more broadly at both at the regional level as well as at the global level. Next. Yeah, in terms of the challenge, and in this case, energy access challenge, I think one of the key things that we all know is that according to the latest report by the International Energy Agency, is that despite the significant progress that has been made in the recent years, we still have close to around a billion people, more specifically 840 million people who still do not have access to electricity. And a majority of these, as you all know, they're actually residing in sub-Saharan Africa. And again, according to the same report, is that by 2030, 650 million people will still not have been reached with electricity, and 9 out of 10 of these will actually be found in the sub-Saharan region. The other thing, of course, as we know, is reliability still remains as a huge challenge for both urban and rural populations, both in Africa and in India. Next. Yeah, and here you can see certainly access to energy is linked to all the other SDGs as well as the targets. And so certainly I think what we were trying to demonstrate here is if we don't then promote access to SDG 7, in this case, if we don't promote the achievement of SDG 7, in this case, access to energy, certainly this is also going to have repercussions with the realization of the rest of the SDGs, whether you're looking at health, for example, electrifying the rural clinics, or you're talking about education, or is it in terms of fighting hunger? I think all these SDGs are directly linked to SDG 7. And so basically to paint the picture as to why it's quite urgent that we have to come up with new models that can be able to guarantee access to energy. Next. Yeah, so in terms of our approach, and the approach in this case to energy access work, I think one of the key things that we have identified as an organization is that the traditional approach to energy delivery, which has mainly focused on the supply side of energy model, I think has not worked very well in terms of promoting sustainable access to energy. And so our approach, we adopt a demand-driven approach. And in this case, 3 key things that we actually seek to do. One of them is, of course, seeking to integrate renewable energy into the development sector service delivery models and strategic plans. So whether, for example, you're looking at agriculture or whether you're looking at health, for example, how can we be able to integrate renewable energy into those sectors, as well as the strategic plans. And the strategic plans, in this case, working with development organizations which are working on the ground, helping them to articulate their energy demands, to identify actually the opportunity for integrating renewable energy, but also at the same time in terms of helping them to articulate their energy demands. And it's at the same time, again, it's also looking at how can we be able to support them to integrate now renewable energy across the entire strategic plan for the organization. And at the same time, it's not just about development organizations, it's also working with governments, both national as well as subnational government level, to help them also demonstrate how they can be able to integrate renewable energy into their sector priorities at both national and subnational level. And then the other one is in terms of demonstrating demand for energy, which of course is what now we are going to be speaking about. Dimitris will be taking us through, is that we have developed a GIS-based energy access map, which links demand with supply to influence investment. I think there's no need for me to spend so much time on this, as Dimitris is going to speak more into detail about this. And then finally is engaging national policies and planning processes. So of course, again, as I have mentioned, is in terms of scaling our work, once we do the research and then we come up with recommendations that then get tested, the next step definitely is to work with national governments then to see how we can be able to scale up the interventions or the initiatives that we are promoting. In this case, we actually do both subnational, national, and also looking at opportunities at the regional level where we can be able to demonstrate some of these interventions and how they've worked with the hope of influencing those, influencing policies at the 3 levels. And I think with that, then I can be able to hand it over to my colleague, Dimitris. Over to you, Dimitris.
Thank you, Benson. Thanks a lot. Before starting, I'd like to thank Hannah and SE4All for hosting us and giving us the opportunity to introduce this new mapping platform to this multidisciplinary audience. My name is Dimitris Mentis. I've been working on geospatial electrification, modeling and mapping for the past 8 years or so, and I'm currently leading the development of this new mapping platform that we'll share with you today. So to effectively expand energy access, policymakers, business leaders, and civil society organizations all need to have access to better data and analytical tools that capture key attributes of the unserved and underserved populations they are trying to reach. And to reach or to achieve universal access to modern energy, proper energy planning needs to be carried out in order to match supply with the growing demand in the most cost-effective way. In addition to that, energy planning is necessary if we are to move from centralized and expensive energy carriers towards fluctuating, decentralized, and cost-effective renewable energy production. So, do we face any difficulty in carrying out effective energy planning? Well, traditionally, energy planning has required a plethora of input data and parameters in order to solve cost optimization problems. And in order to keep these models solvable in reasonable time, most typical energy planning tools consider spatially aggregated regions. However, as you all know, the spatial dimension is important for electrification planning. Note that the majority of the recently developed geospatial electrification planning tools, although they provide useful high-level insights on technology and investment needs to reach universal access, they focus mostly on the supply side or on aspects of supply, with only few initiatives considering aspects of demand and affordability. But similar to most products, similar to most industries, we need to understand better the customers' needs, whether these customers are households or institutional loads, if we are to supply electricity in a sustainable manner. Because supplying electricity that is not affordable won't be a viable strategy, neither for the consumers nor for the utilities. To add on this, energy access demand, energy access demand and supply data gap, it is not uncommon in developing countries that energy-related data are either scarce or scattered in a number of different databases. So to bridge this energy access demand versus supply data gap, and following energy planning's main objective, which is no other than meeting supply with demand, we've been collaborating with a number of local partners and stakeholders to develop Energy Access Explorer. What is Energy Access Explorer? In few words, it is an online, open source, and interactive platform that provides data and analytical tools that are essential to increase access to energy services. Now, considering a number of inputs from our stakeholder engagement in a number of geographies, as well as an energy access mapping survey that we conducted, we designed Energy Access Explorer to be a modular tool that considers the multidimensionality of energy access. So the platform synthesizes and analyzes several datasets on both energy supply and demand. The tool uses current location-specific resource availability and infrastructure data, such as solar irradiance, wind speed magnitude, transmission distribution network, to represent energy supply, current or potential. Further, the tool incorporates demographic data, such as population density, poverty rates, and data on social and productive uses. Where are the healthcare facilities located, schools, agricultural zones, to visualize demand, current or potential for energy services. Please note that Energy Access Explorer can host different types of data at various resolutions, scales, and formats. So some data can come from open census databases, other from satellite and remote sensing databases, and or some national and subnational databases within the select geographies. So what can the users do with the platform and how they can interact with it? They can interact in various ways. So to start with, they can select and overlay data. They can apply buffer zones and filters. And they can also weigh the importance of data and carry out a high resolution multi-criteria analysis on the fly. What does on the fly mean? It means that there is no need to download any GIS software, Geographic Information Systems software, nor to be a programming expert in order to carry out a geospatial analysis. All the users need is access to an internet browser. So for every square kilometer in the select geographies, the tool provides currently 4 analytical outputs. This indicates low-hanging fruits, basically areas where access should be prioritized. Areas with higher potential demand, we have a demand index. Areas with higher potential supply, have the supply index, and a fourth index, or a fourth analytical output, which is called assistance need index, and indicates areas where assistance to external finance may be needed the most. So users of the platform are able to, of course, access it because it's open access, and customize the analysis in order to identify areas where energy access can be expanded based on their perspective. And the perspectives of the various users can be different. So more specifically, the use of this platform enables strategic energy planning, where electrification planning agencies will be able to better link electrification efforts and development that meet the needs of the people. B, the platform enables the expansion of energy access markets, where clean energy entrepreneurs, whether these are mini-grid developers or solar home system providers, may get a better understanding of aspects of affordability and the level of service needed. C, donors and development finance institutions may use the tool in order to identify areas where grants and support may have the most impact. And D, service delivery institutions in the health, education, and ag sectors, think, for example, the Ministry of Health in a country, will be able to get a rough estimate of the energy needs associated to development services. The collaboration with local partners and stakeholders, as my colleague mentioned earlier on, has been key to our work and has been key to ensure that this particular tool is relevant and applicable to the local context. So in the example of Uganda, which is one of the 3 countries we developed the prototype for, we have partnered with the Energy Sector GIS Working Group, which is a group of engineers and GIS associates from all key energy planning institutions and utilities in the country, including the Ministry of Energy, the Rural Energy Agency, the transmission distribution companies, etc. So local stakeholders, not only in Uganda, but in the other geographies that we have engagements with, review periodically the platform and provide their feedback on its development. They also provide new or more updated data when these become available. It is also envisioned that eventually we will share administrator rights with this group and other key planning institutions in the other geographies, so they can co-administer and co-maintain the platform. And this is important. Why? Because this way we can ensure the longevity and relevance of the platform in each geography. As a result of this engagement, which started a year and a half ago, WRI, this working group, and other local partners in Uganda co-hosted the launch of the beta version of Energy Access Explorer last September in Kampala. And here you see the picture of the launch event. In the next slide, I have included a video with a short video with testimonials and quotes from a number of stakeholders. I will ask Hannah to share this deck later with all of you. I will not play this in the interest of time and due to some technical limitations on sharing audio, but this video basically shares some testimonials and quotes from a number of stakeholders on how this platform can add value in our common efforts to expand access to energy services and at the same time make the link to other sustainable development outcomes. You can also find this online on the user stories tab of the Energy Access Explorer website, so please have a look at it. Let me at this point switch to the live demo. So you can get a feel of a better feel of the platform. What you see here is the landing page of Energy Access Explorer. You can easily find it at energyaccessexplorer.org. As you can see, the website includes links to relevant sample analysis, links to some blogs. There is a user stories tab that I just mentioned, and also a link to the technical peer-reviewed documentation behind the analytical tool. Now, before going through some examples, I'd like to guide you through the tool. So you can click on tool and you will be directed to this country or geography selector page. And let us select Uganda. So the first thing the user sees once they enter the tool is a help guide. So if you're exploring this platform yourselves, note that there is this wizard available, so you can get a guidance through the app in 9 simple steps. We will not use this now, but I'll try to guide you through the platform instead. So on the left of your page, you see the so-called customization panel. Here is where users can select data. They can apply filters, buffer zones, and change the weight of data. All this on the fly. As you can see, data are grouped in 4 main categories. Census data, data basically that are available at subnational level, for example, their radio ownership, the electrification rates that may be available at sub-county level in Uganda. So data in this group are available at coarse resolution and can only be used as filters. What does this mean? It means that users can use this data to filter in or out subnational administrative areas. Then we have data that users can select to visualize and analyze demand, such as data on demographics, for example, population density. So I just select population density, and the population density map loads in the page. And you can also get data under under social and productive uses, so the location of healthcare facilities. For example, to help users get a better understanding of areas where there are social and productive loads. The third category includes supply-related data, such as energy resource availability, the global horizontal irradiance. Again, you can click on it and visualize it, and data on infrastructure, such as the distribution network in the select geography, in this case, Uganda. Finally, we have other data, and this can be quite granular and are used as filters. So such data can be, for example, the protected areas, or it can be the refugee settlements, or the location of finance service providers that are important for users to identify areas of interest, but cannot contribute directly to the analytical outputs of the multi-criteria analysis. Now, in the center of your page, you see the map of the select geography. We have a couple of data views. One that shows the underlying data, basically population density, for example, and you can click at any point in the map and read information about the select dataset. So here we have population density, and we can read the value for this particular indicator, 33 people per square kilometer, and these are the this is the set of coordinate, longitude and latitude coordinates. And we have also the analysis tab. What does the analysis tab do? Or the analysis view, it shows the outputs of the multi-criteria, of the custom multi-criteria analysis that the users conduct. So once users start adding more than one datasets, basically overlaying datasets, then the platform normalizes all these indicators in order to be able to carry out this multi-criteria analysis on the fly and identify and prioritize areas of interest. And on the right-hand side, we have some space for the legend, the map's legend, and for some graphs that will start popping up as soon as we select more data. So let's go through some examples, maybe one or two, because time is running. And let's imagine that you are a clean energy entrepreneur and you are interested in identifying areas where potential customers may be, or you may be interested in validating your analysis and your own data. So you could look at data such as population density, poverty rates, and let's say that you would be interested in areas that have lower poverty rates. It's an indicator for, or a proxy for affordability. And then you could look at some supply-related data. So if you're a solar home system provider, you would be interested in looking at areas with relatively high global horizontal irradiance. So let me select here 1,700 kilowatt hours per meter square. I can set, as you see, the values manually. And you see that some things or some areas in the bottom right map get excluded. I can switch to the analysis so you can see directly the outputs of the multi-criteria analysis that we conduct right now on the fly. Okay? So some other data that we could include is the distribution substations. Okay, so I would be interested as a mini-grid developer or as a solar home system providers to look at areas that are far from distribution substations, since this is a good, let's say, proxy for understanding where the grid is today and where it can reach within the coming years. So right now we get a quick picture of areas where energy access should be prioritized. There are, as you can see, 4 analytical outputs: energy access potential or low-hanging fruit areas. The lighter the color in the map, the higher the priority for this particular user, clean energy entrepreneurs, should be. And the darker the color, the lower the priority. Again, we can click at any point in the map and read information about the analytical output. In this case, low-hanging fruits or the energy access potential. You can also get some interactive graphs. So you can see that 11.5 million people live in areas that are further than 5 kilometers from distribution stations in Uganda. These are in areas that have a high solar irradiance, areas with low, let's say, or lower poverty rates. We could also look at population, certain population density values. So you may be interested at looking at areas that have high or relatively high population density. So you could look at areas that have higher than 100 people per square kilometer or 150, depending on what the urban rural definition may be in its geography. And you see that the interactive graphs and the outputs that we get have changed on the fly. Okay, users can switch from one analytical output to another. They can zoom into to areas, and you see that the map keeps on loading some more information, such as the road network, the names of the locations, etc. And the analysis that is being carried out on the fly is conducted at 1 square kilometer. So for every square kilometer, these cells that you see are at 1 square kilometer resolution. You get a different analytical output. Okay, you can also click on Snapshot. This will give you this summary for all analytical outputs. You can get this in a summary table, and you can export either to a CSV, basically an Excel table, or you can have a PDF report, which you can use in your presentations or in your reports or in your discussions with relevant stakeholders to initiate discussions about where should energy access be prioritized. So now that was just a quick example with selecting 4 or 5 geospatial data sets. Here you get the summary report in a PDF with all maps and tables. What were the data sets that you selected? What were the filters that you applied, etc. I'll try to share one more example before jumping back to my slides. So let's imagine that you are an analyst in an energy planning institution and are interested in understanding and visualizing areas with potential social loads, so health clinics and education facilities, for example. And this is something that you would like to do in order to consider these areas in your energy planning assignments. So again, let's select population density. Let's select healthcare facilities and education facilities, or schools to be more precise. You see, as soon as we start overlaying more than 1 or 2 data sets, the picture gets quite complicated to understand. And that's why we have these 2 data views. We have the data view and we have the analysis view. So let's look at areas that are close to schools. So the maximum distance from clinics, excuse me, is 5 kilometers, and the maximum distance from schools is also 5 kilometers. You see that the graphs keep on changing on the fly, okay? And let's look at areas that are far from distribution substations or service transformers. So let's look at areas that the minimum distance is 5. So what we see here is areas where there are potential social and productive loads, healthcare facilities and social nodes and education facilities that may currently be unserved, okay, are far from service transformers, unserved by the distribution network. A similar analysis could have been carried out by an engineer within the Ministry of Health in a country who wants to map clinics, let's say, their electrification status, and understand how best to serve these clinics that are not served. So you could also add a resource availability data set such as global horizontal irradiance and look at areas that are that highlight or that have high solar irradiance. So what we see now is areas that have high solar irradiance are far from the distribution substations and are very close to potential social nodes. Again, this is just a quick example that we put together on the fly, and users can use more data and functions that are available in the platform to develop custom analysis based on their perspective. Note, please, that this is just the beta version, and we continue co-creating the platform with a number of stakeholders, and we welcome you all in this initiative to ensure that the platform is relevant, applicable, and to ensure the longevity until such data and such analysis is no longer needed. So I'll stop here. There is certainly much more to share, such as the metadata for each indicator is available here. Why is this data set used? Where you can download data? Where was the data last updated? You can download even the analytical outputs, the maps in a GIS format, so you can further analyze those. You can download the maps in a JPEG format, so you can include them in a presentation or in a report. And this applies both on the analytical outputs as well as the input data sets. So the schools, so you can click at any school and get information about the type of schools and soon the electrification status of all these data sets. So I'll stop here the live demo and jump back to the presentation and share a few words about what next. So thanks to the modular and geography agnostic web infrastructure of the platform, we will expand the tool to include 6 more countries in the sub-Saharan African region during this year and 2 states in India. We will also integrate geospatial assessments on energy requirements or energy, electricity requirements for the health, education, and ag sectors. And we will also integrate outputs of least cost electrification analysis, such as the levelized cost of electricity and cost optimal access types. So is the cost optimal access type an extension of the grid network, or setting up a mini grid system or standalone solar home systems, etc. So all these will be included as additional indicators that users can select to identify areas of interest. Please note that this is not a cost optimization platform. It's a multi-criteria tool that takes into account several parameters. Users can weigh the importance of the different parameters on the fly in order to identify areas of interest. And costs can be one of the multiple parameters that the users will be able to use to identify areas of interest, but not the only objective. Finally, we plan to, as I said briefly earlier, to share administrator rights with key planning institutions in the select geographies and build capacity around this platform, both the front end of the platform, which is what you saw, as well as the back end of the application, which is a customized content management system that can be used to easily integrate data and metadata, as well as change the functions, change the way data contribute to analysis, change the data categories, change the way data are being visualized in a fairly simple manner. Closing, I would like to again emphasize this is still in a beta version. The Energy Access Explorer team is keen on hearing from you all and learn how to further enhance the platform to ensure it's used for linking access and socioeconomic development. And if you are interested in learning more or contributing to the development of the platform, sharing your stories on how this platform can be useful for your work, or just providing feedback, kindly reach out to either my colleague Benson or me. We would be more than happy to give a more detailed demonstration and listen to your feedback and welcome you to this initiative. Thank you.
Demetrius and Benson, thank you so much. This was such a great demonstration and like I said, a first glimpse of this incredible tool. It's also clear that you and the team have put in so much work to make this useful. And I know a lot of effort has gone into this over the past year or so. Echoing Amira's comment that this is a brilliant addition to our toolbox. Since I want to make sure we have enough time to get into questions, maybe I will kick us off with kind of a general framing. I think and I'm sure others, I know Amira noted one question already, have thoughts on what kind of data could go into this and maybe what types of data are missing. But for now, maybe I'll just ask you to speak to the sustainability of this platform. You have an ambitious rollout for more country level analyses over the next year, but how are you at WRI and others envisioning kind of the ongoing maintenance of this data and new collection in other spaces?
Thank you, Hannah. This is actually an excellent question, something that we are being asked often, especially since a number of data platforms are usually being developed once they may be useful for 1 or 2, 3 years, but as soon as better or new data become available, the visualizations of these platforms become outdated. So taking this into account, we have been engaging with local stakeholders from the very beginning of conceptualizing this platform. So before even starting the actual web development and data collection. And the reason this is important is because we want to eventually share administrator rights, because as we expand the platform to include more geographies, WRI won't be able to maintaining and continuing updating data for all geographies in time, and ensuring that the platform is always relevant and applicable. Of course, we will be co-administering, we will be supporting the development, but we really hope that we will build capacity, transfer this knowledge, and invite key planning institutions to co-administer and co-own this platform. So, and this platform is supposed to be seen or considered as a tool that is co-developed by its partners. So WRI is leading this initiative, but without the important contributions of our partners and of a number of stakeholders, we wouldn't have reached to this stage now.
Thank you. That's really helpful to know, and I think kind of leads me to my next question, and one I'll pull in pieces from folks that have submitted in the chat function. I think in terms of kind of bringing in partners, maybe you can answer some of the questions about different categories of data with the eye of how can folks on this call potentially contribute to the data and help inform kind of what's needed on the ground. I know we have quite a few participants today as part of the members of the People-Centered Accelerator that are very involved in on-the-ground work and working day in and day out in these countries. So maybe I'll aggregate a couple, and you and Benson can answer these as you see fit. We have a question about finance data and how this is disaggregated, if there's any kind of granular data on private finance that's available in these three countries in particular, or the ones you're looking towards in the future. I know you mentioned the kind of proxy of location of financial institutions. I think, as Amira points out, and as SE for All has looked at in the energizing finance work, you know, there's still a large gap in terms of financing and creating kind of affordability, closing affordability gaps. I will also echo the question on reliability of, oh, I'm sorry. My question was about electricity reliability, but we also have a question about the reliability of the data. So maybe you can take the finance, the electricity reliability, and maybe in the kind of understanding of using this towards productive uses of power. And I'll throw in cooking there as well. So how are you planning to incorporate these kind of categories of data, and what do you need to do so? That was a lot, sorry.
Okay, okay, excellent question. So maybe I can start with the finance, the data categories, electricity reliability and data reliability, and Benson could address the cooking question. So the finance data that you see under this category, the finance category, includes data on finance service providers such as microfinance institutions and banks. So if you visit the map and you select this particular data set, you can click at any point and read, you know, information about it. What is the name of the finance service provider? What is the type, etc. We could certainly further, you know, disaggregate this data in terms of visualizing those different types with different colors. So this is something that we can certainly do, and we haven't done yet. It's a data set we have recently added. So disaggregating this further is something that we could certainly do. In terms of data categories and contributing data to the platform, again, feel free to reach out with suggestions on other data categories, or potentially, you know, renaming some of the data categories that we may have, or suggesting other sources for data. Thanks to the modularity of the backend of the application, we can easily add new data. What is important here is to make sure, and this relates to the data reliability question, is that data follows certain data standards. So all data should be followed by their, or accompanied by their metadata, so users can track the original source, the original methodology if that is needed. So data without metadata, data that are outdated won't be integrated in the platform. So this with regards to data reliability, and this is one of the most important reasons why we want to work closely with the local stakeholders and with data providers to make sure that the data that are integrated in the platform are the most updated and data that can be used to inform analysis at different levels. On the electricity reliability data, we do not have currently a dataset incorporated in the platform. We welcome suggestions. WRI has been collaborating with a number of partners, EED in Kenya and Prayas Energy Group in India, to develop the electricity supply monitoring initiative that maps the quality of electricity supply, but data are available in a limited number of locations. So electricity reliability at granular level is something that is missing from the platform, and of course we would be very keen to integrate such data into it once such data become available, either from analysis that is being carried out at WRI or from partners. So I'll stop here and I'll pass the mic to Benson to address the question on cooking data. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dimitris and Hannah, for all these. So just responding directly to the question on energy for cooking, I think the first thing to appreciate is that when we started this process, the key focus was on basically the component around energy for development. And so we were looking at the nexus between energy and agriculture or livelihoods development, then education and health. But I think as we've continued to interact with the different targeted users, including civil society organizations, there has been a growing need for us to then incorporate data on energy for cooking, for example, biomass, etc. So I think, and definitely because we want to to develop a tool that will be useful to the targeted users, we've definitely been having a conversation internally. And I think the next step, of course, is one to basically welcome any suggestions from organizations that would be interested, for example, in seeing data on energy for cooking, for example. And then number two is that we're actually thinking about basically organizing a meeting where all those organizations that are interested can be able to come together with us. Definitely there's going to be an online one, a call, a Skype call, for example, where we can be able to exchange ideas in terms of the kind of data that you'd want to see there, and also how to collect that data so that we can be able to respond to the needs from the targeted users. I hope that helps in terms of responding.
Yes, thank you both so much. I think this is a great example of kind of jumpstarting this conversation with a broad audience, a wide range of stakeholders, and hopefully, I think as you mentioned, this work will continue for quite some time as we refine the data needed and find new sources and even perfect kind of some of our collection methods as well. Maybe we can end with this last question about how you see the adaptability and internalization and incentives that government institutions might have for incorporating this tool into their work. And maybe you could just speak a bit more to some of the interactions you've had or places where you've seen kind of some successes in terms of getting traction.
Benson, would you like to take this one?
Sorry, do you pick it, Dimitris? Sorry.
Shall I? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So it's certainly a process that takes time. So engage, first identifying the right stakeholders that we need to engage with, and then making sure that the value added is clear, as well as there is a plan for the way forward. These are all things that take significant time to achieve. And we have, of course, learned lessons as we've been, conceptualizing and developing this platform over the past year and a half, and we hope to apply these lessons that we've learned in the new geographies. So work closely with the local stakeholders that have been identified as key, interact with them regularly, make sure that their feedback and their perspectives are reflected in the development of the platform, so the tool is being seen as a tool that is being co-developed rather than an effort that is, or a tool that is being introduced and promoted. So this is the key, I would say, lesson, and something that we always keep in mind as we want to ensure that this will be used and will be sustainable over the long term. It will be a dynamic data platform that keeps on getting updated with not only new data, but new functions. The challenges that we have today in one geography may be different in another geography, and the challenge that we have today in one geography may be different in the future, either data challenges or analytical challenges or questions that we need to address within this space. So we built the platform again in a modular way, so we can add new blocks, if you like, into it once these become necessary, right? So work closely with the stakeholders and make sure the platform is being co-owned. This will be the key message from my side.
Thank you so much. I think that really reemphasizes the role that all of our people-centered accelerator members and partners that have joined this call can play in terms of rolling out this tool with our partners on the ground in national governments, as well as providing feedback and kind of ongoing support to bolster and expand the scope of the platform. I think there are a couple open questions, but maybe I will ask folks to take this time and take advantage of Demetrius and Benson's openness and willing to have extended conversations about kind of pieces of that you think could contribute to the ongoing kind of expansion of this tool. So please use the emails that they posted earlier. We will also be posting the slides, so you'll have their contact information and follow. I encourage everyone to follow up with them, as well as clicking through, the link that you see here, the Explorer itself. Thank you for all of your questions and everyone for your time today. I will briefly mention before closing that we will be hosting another webinar on March 5th to share the key findings of our forthcoming Energy Safety Nets report series. This is a partnership with SE for All, ODI, and CAFOD to distill and build on critical lessons learned from 6 countries' experiences with approaches to support the poor and vulnerable to access modern energy services and close affordability gaps. We'll send the invitation out shortly, but you can register through SE for All's webinar page as well. So with that, quite on time today, I want to thank our participants for your time and asking such compelling questions. I think this is helpful to all of us, not only to kind of walk through the demonstration of this platform, but to be able to provide some suggestions to Demetrius and Benson in their work as well. I especially want to thank our presenters for sharing this exciting tool and for taking the time to walk us through it today. I hope you will see some site traffic spikes after this call is over. Thank you all for your participation and have a great rest of your day.